Officer for Special Projects and Initiatives at Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation. And I'll turn it to Patrick.
Good morning, I'm Patrick Streck, and I am serving as an advising consultant to this program on the technical front, particularly around internet and getting things wired and set up.
Great. So we're just going to share a little bit about how this opportunity came about. As part of the ARPA funds for recovery post-COVID, the Massachusetts Broadband Institute received funding for a broadband innovation fund, which was really to help bridge the digital divide in COVID recovery. I think all of us experienced and continue to experience a lot of time spent online and in Zoom meetings. And those people that had access to internet, reliable access, were able to continue to engage. And people that didn't, were really marginalized out of a lot of community opportunities. And we're continuing to see so much of our work that had been previously in person shifted to be on the internet, whether that is how someone navigates the legal system, how one might show up at an organization that provides food for food security and you need to order online. And so really part of this is part of a greater effort to think about bridging digital divides on behalf, and locally, we're really fortunate to have the Western Mass Alliance for Digital Equity that Patrick mentioned, and that has been doing this work for a number of years. And the Alliance received a $5.1 million grant to work in 4 areas. Some of you might be involved in organizations that have received other grants that are related to this, which include connectivity in individuals' houses and literacy. And we are one program of that, which is focused on Wi-Fi access in public spaces. And there's ongoing efforts, particularly on a statewide level, to look at digital equity work. Emily, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about this opportunity specifically.
Great, thank you. So this is a 2-part process where applicants will first fill out a brief questionnaire about their current internet setup. And after a site visit from a technology consultant, organizations that qualify will affirm that they're still interested in receiving a grant of approximately $5,000 to add or expand their internet access. So because of the structure, we're highly encouraging organizations to fill out the questionnaire as soon as possible, as applications are going to be reviewed on a rolling basis. And just once again, so it's for equipment and installation to add or increase public Wi-Fi access. After this rolling part goes through, the next, sorry, can you go back 1 second, Meredith? The part 2 is if you successfully complete that, meet with Patrick, the technology consultant, there would be a very short, we're calling it affirmation of intention, kind of a final application. Okay, we can go ahead. So eligibility, who's eligible? You must be located in Berkshire, Franklin, Hampton, and or Hampshire counties in Western Mass. Organizations or municipalities. So you must be a nonprofit. We're giving some examples of potential applicants' locations, such as libraries, public housing, common spaces, senior centers, workforce training centers, other public spaces. So those that are municipally owned and which serve the intended population of this grant opportunity. You must be ready and able to expand public internet access. We'll talk about the population served next. Okay, so the overarching intent is to provide access to the internet for low-income or otherwise digitally disenfranchised folks. So you'll share more about this in part 1 of your request, but we've listed here some of the eligible populations. I'm not going to read them, read them through line by line, but for example, folks that are on SNAP, temporary assistance for needy families, TANF, and free or reduced price lunch would certainly make you eligible. Okay, and this is over back to you, Meredith.
So I'm going to walk you through. If you are a Community Foundation of Western Mass current grantee, or you have applied to a grant with us within the past 3 years, that means you already have an account in our system called GLM. If you do not know your organization's login, you will just shoot an email to an email address that we will repeat many, many times during this webinar, which is grants, plural, @communityfoundation.org. And we will tell you, here's how you reset your password, or we will say, oh, it's with this email address, or we have this person on file as the main person. Should we change it up? The reason that we want you to use your existing grant login for your organization is it allows us to see your entire history with the Community Foundation. And that means you will get whatever notifications and all of that cohesively. If you're not sure, which is what we find for a lot of people, especially we know there's been a lot of turnover in the past few years, you'll also just email grants@communityfoundation.org and say, hey, do we have a login? And we will either say yes or no. If it's no, I'm going to show you the slides for there. If it's yes, we'll get it reset to you. If you are your location is in Berkshire County and you are a grantee or connected to the Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, you do not have a login for our system. Their system looks very similar to ours, but you do not have a login for our system yet. So you will follow you'll follow these slides to log in. We will post these slides on our website. And if you get confused, you will also just send an email to grants@communityfoundation.org and we will walk you through this process. But basically, if you are 100% sure you do not have one, you will click create new account. Once you get in there, you will fill out your information about your organization, your location. This is like the location that any grant agreement would go to. This is not necessarily the location of where the internet access is. If you're applying for an auxiliary site or one of your other spaces, this is like our main address. And you will enter your EIN. If you are not an organization with an EIN, this might be the case that you're fiscally sponsored. You might be a municipality. You will enter in all zeros. If you are fiscally sponsored or you do not have an EIN, again, if you have questions, you will shoot us at grants@communityfoundation.org and we will figure this out for you. If you are a church or defined by the IRS as a church, you will enter in all twos. If you are, in this case, a program acting as a part of a large organization, you'll see these drop-down opportunities. But this is important for us because, again, this is going to allow us to tie to your actual organization, make sure we're eligible to pay you, and go through that process. You will then have an account in our system, and that will be amazing. And at the top, you will see a button that says apply, and you will click on it. And you will then see the program for the community space public Wi-Fi. You will see our two organizations' logos. And at the very top, you will see a second apply button. And that will take you directly into the application for this opportunity. And again, we'll post the slides. It is not necessarily intuitive. We cannot change the system. I am so sorry. What we can do is answer all of your questions and get you through this process. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to change my screen share, and Patrick is going to walk us through the actual application, the questionnaire, and really talk about what answers we're hoping to see in the questionnaire itself. I think the most important thing, and I know Patrick will repeat this, is we're asking for your best knowledge. We understand that you are not all internet and IT experts, and part of this is why Patrick's going to connect with you later after the point, but it's so that we can connect as much information up front so that we can then ask the right questions and have that good conversation. All right, Patrick, you should be all set.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So just to take you through this and just at a high level before we start diving in, to reinforce what Meredith said, this is an expression of interest, right? You are seeking to put forward the fact that you would like to be able to do this. These are the parameters or the current circumstances that you're dealing with and where you ultimately what you're seeking to do. So as we go through it, some of the questions are a little bit more thoughtful in terms of tell us what you're trying to accomplish or who you serve. Others are going to be more quantitative in terms of headcount, budgets, etc. So with that, why don't we scroll through here? We've got the introduction, which is pretty much what's already been covered or you've received already. So first question, this is very specifically, as Meredith stated, this is not the location of your home address of the organization. This is the address of wherever the site is that you are looking to enable with public access for public wireless access. So if it is different from your corporate address, fine, but just make sure you list it here. And then as we go down through, the county is fairly explicit. And let's keep it rolling. So the contact person for the Wi-Fi installation. So this is the person, again, if it is whoever's filling out the application, terrific. Or if it is someone who may be present at the alternative facility, or may be, you know, your resident in-house IT point of contact, this is who I would be predominantly seeking to engage with in terms of conversation for understanding, etc. So again, there may be differences in terms of who goes here versus who is filling out the application. Contact info, keep going. We appreciate you filling out this field in particular because it gives us some more context as to the nature of the population you're serving, the timings, etc. So case in point, we've already had some applications come in, one visit's been conducted, and among other things, this group teaches classes in the evenings and on the weekends in the site that they're looking to build out. That's hopeful. If it's something where it's more community and unstructured in terms of you want to be able to have access for people to come to as they're able or to meet their schedule, please include that here. And as well as just sort of talking about what is the group that you serve, what is the nature of the work, and so that we're able to sort of just have a sense for who it is you're working with on a daily basis or a regular basis. We'll keep going. The population served, again, pretty self-explanatory. Help us understand who it is. You can then fill in down below, checking off the boxes. And this is a multi-select. So if you are serving multiple groups within these populations, please indicate so by checking off as many of the boxes that apply.
And I'll just add, if you're seeing on a few places here where it says do not use, on our back end, we sometimes have duplicated questions or things like that. You will only see questions that you should be answering, but this is the easiest way for us to show it to you rather than creating a fake application that we then have to get rid of.
Thank you, Meredith. All right. So eligible population served. So again, this is just an estimate as to who meets the guidelines and factors into how we're able to do the calculations and come up with the organizational decisions. All right. So grant information, obviously your project name is pretty self-explanatory. As we step down now into the assessment of the internet search. So the size of the space, the reason we're asking for this, particularly square feet, is that's just a matter of coverage. I think everybody understands that if you're putting in something like a Wi-Fi router, it will only effectively cover for a certain radius of space. It just puts a big umbrella of connectivity out there. And then we ask for a further description of the building. And this is where it would be very helpful to understand, is it a building that is from 1922 made out of carved granite and horsehair plaster, which from my perspective as a technologist is basically saying it might as well be insulated with lead. So signals don't transit particularly well, so it will add to some complexity. Alternatively, if it's a wide open space, then that will allow us to interpret or approach the solution differently. Physical obstacles might be interesting for those of you that don't know. Glass qualifies as an obstacle. It is almost as reflective as a mirror in terms of some Wi-Fi signals. So please be aware of that. It is just as good as a solid wall as anything else. Yep. So the current connection. Do you have connection on site? This is something that obviously is very important. If you have if you already have connectivity, expanding becomes easier. If you don't, then we need to have conversations to the nature of the providers or the options available to you. This is, and again, every question that we're asking here, I'm simply asking for you to answer to the best of your ability. So the type of internet connection, it would be great to know if you have 100 megabytes over 20, which is 100 megabytes can be transmitted to you. You can push back 20 megabits per second, which is a decent high-speed connection. However, it is one that if you get to the point of having multiple users, it would potentially start to saturate, and you can see connection speed starting to slow down. So this is part of the conversation in combination with what's your connection speed, what's the number of people you expect to be supporting. That will help us understand how strong the signal needs to be. The dedicated staff, great question. And this really is more about, do you have someone that's going to be able to understand and potentially manage the system? Or do we need to be looking to design something that's a little bit more turnkey and externally supportable? Budget numbers. So this is a key one, and one I expect that will be a point of conversation more than once. The grant, as currently structured, is predominantly focused on being a capital grant, which is to say helping with the build out of a particular location and the acquisition of the equipment necessary to facilitate the public Wi-Fi. It is not, as currently planned and structured, intended to be in support of operating budgets, which is to say to pay for a Comcast bill over the next 12 or 24 months. Now, and Michael, you can scold me if necessary here. That is something that has come up. It is part of what we're trying to consider. It's also a core reason for putting this letter of interest out there, is to understand, where are you? Right? Do you have a budget? Can you afford $50 or $100 a month for connectivity? Or is that a primary blocker for providing capability in the first place? Does that make sense to everyone? All right. And then you can see the follow-on questions there with respect to your current budget, your expected budget. In some cases, this may be something that can simply be layered upon what already exists, and you're just expanding the network field without much impact to either your operations or general use. However, to my point, if you are adding a significant number of users, it may require the addition of expanding your bandwidth, moving to a higher level capacity, and potentially incurring a higher service cost from the provider. So that's part of what we're trying to understand here. And then the budget comment, feel free, have at it. Let us know, what are your pain points? Are you having difficulty, etc. Anything that you think would be useful, please add here. And then we get to more of the context, right? So what's the primary purpose? Who are you trying to serve, and in what context? Are you going to be teaching classes? Are you going to be facilitating people having the opportunity to get online and fill out paperwork or applications, or maybe they're trying to engage with the RMP to get a license? I don't know what it is, but anything you can do to provide us with that context is helpful here. The next question of people served on a regular basis. Again, regularity is somewhat loosely defined, but if it's going to be, we expect to have 20 people hanging out from 8 to 5 every day, great. Or if it's something where we have structured programs, we're open from 1 to 3 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we expect to have anywhere from 5 to 35 people. Again, things that are helpful to know and understand. Part of this is also making sure that we're seeking to, as much as possible, build out an environment that will handle your maximum threshold effectively, or minimally be able to deal with the larger portion of your population on a regular basis. So if we can know the high end of the limits, that would be very, very directional in terms of some of the design and decision making. These questions, I think, are fairly self-explanatory in terms of the frequency, the concurrent number of users, simultaneous users. How many people do you expect to be online at any given time? So, and then what's your future? Do you think that this is a first step? Is this part of a larger plan? What would that look like? Again, that would impact our design. In some cases, it may just be a matter of being able to drop something in place and say, hey, here we go, all set, and you're going to be good for a long run rate. Others, it might be the fact that we're looking to build out this particular space but we are in the process of constructing, or redeveloping another portion of our building. Our design considerations there would seek to incorporate something for expansion that would not be disruptive to, not require the establishment of a whole new network. So we might change the nature of the equipment we put in if it's going to be something that would potentially expand with time. And then the last one, again, give us the context. Let us know what you're thinking, how it works, questions you might have, anything along those lines, so that we are able to really understand the full picture of what you're trying to do. And then from that point, once this has been filled out and submitted, it will come to me for a review, and you will very quickly get a reply from me looking to schedule time to come out and meet with you or your technical lead at the location that you're asking to put the wireless, the public Wi-Fi into place. And that's so that I can take pictures, I can get a sense, I can evaluate the physical space, understand some other components associated with what it might take, and then be able to complete a full and formal recommendation for the community foundation as to here's what the estimation is as to what it would take to accomplish this. And from there, we then would get rolling on making our determinations as well as funding decisions.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is that in addition to looking at what your individual organization needs, we need to understand what the scope of the region looks like. And so that's why we've said that the grant is approximately $5,000. If we find that everybody needs something that is slightly more expensive, if we find that everyone is going to struggle with installation, with the cost of actually running the network, not just installation, we're taking this into consideration. So the questionnaire is not only for you to surface information about your own grant, it really is to help us design the second stage of this in a way that's actually going to meet community needs. I think that has been something for many of you, and I can see who's here, that have government grants. Oftentimes they have no flexibility, and we're really thankful that this one has some more flexibility for us to design it in response to needs, not just say, this is what we're going to do regardless of what we learn. So I think that that's a nice change for a lot of us. And then we're just going to go through the timeline one more time. I'm going to bring this up again so that we can see, and Emily's going to walk us through that.
Okay, so the questionnaire is open right now and open through January 29th, 2024. So a little over a month. It'll close at 5 o'clock. Organization. So if you apply now, you'll hear from us fairly quickly, or you'll hear from Patrick fairly quickly. Organizations will be notified on a rolling basis by mid-February. And so if your application is determined to be eligible, Patrick will be in touch to set up a site visit or phone call for the technical assessment. And then organizations invited to apply will participate in the stage 2 application, which is, as I said, pretty simple. Will receive a written estimate detailing the technical specifications and estimated cost of the installation. Thanks. And then invited organizations will have until March 15th to submit the stage 2 application. And organizations who are not invited to move on to stage 2 will receive information from the technical assessment that may be helpful for you for future expansion of the internet. And if you are successful with your application, you'll be notified of funding by April 1. And the last piece is installation must be completed by September 1st, 2024.
And as I said before, the best email for any questions is grants@communityfoundation.org. But now we are going to take questions. And so I know I see a whole bunch in the chat. We're going to start there. And if you also have a question, just do that thing on Zoom where you raise your avatar hand, and we'll go through that. So let me start with the chat here. Are municipal parks eligible for this grant? Yes. municipality-owned spaces are eligible. We will have the recording of, oh, Michael, let me call on you to follow up on that. Oh, you're still on mute.
I was just going to do a general statement, but you can answer the questions and I'll jump in if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So unlike other times when you might have encountered community foundation Berkshire Taconic and we're like, you have to be a 501c3, you have to be this type of organization. This is a much more open opportunity, including municipality owned spaces. And if you're not sure if you're eligible, just shoot a note. Don't assume that you aren't. Ben, I see your hand.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
My nonprofit organization is located in a very old building. It's 120 years old, and we're in the center of Springfield, Massachusetts. Yet in those 120 years, Comcast has never run a wire here. Last time we talked to them, they said the estimated cost of doing that would be $36,000. So, I mean, we're using a T-Mobile, home Wi-Fi 5G thing right now. If there's no wired access to the building, are we out of contention? Should we not bother with the application? Thank you.
Patrick, what do you think?
So I think part of this, Ben, is to actually, put a little bit of a thumb on Comcast with some of these installations and requirements. So what we're looking to do is do aggregation. We're trying to, they've made a very prominent play in terms of providing support for these types of initiatives with their project up, and we fully expect to take advantage of it. So my comment to you would be to, yes, if so inclined, please fill out the application. The least we can do, and the worst that can happen is that they say no again, but at least it would be me coming on your behalf, trying to pursue some elements of this and leveraging the larger context of the digital equity programs that are in play to try and achieve the goal.
We have a question from Lisa about a mobile health clinic van.
Yeah, I can answer that so long as, you're under the umbrella of a 501c3 municipality, and the health clinic van is serving the eligible populations, and you could certainly apply.
I saw, Brianna, your question about, can it be used for networking devices, setting up an access control system? This is really intended for the devices that are needed to open up public Wi-Fi, really focused probably on routers. That being said, Brianna, we'll connect you and Patrick, familiar with your space. And I don't know if you want to ask a question. I see you just came off mute.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna kind of say we got some funding from a local business to start an installation. So we had access points installed and we have existing Wi-Fi, but there was we have all this last mile installation that didn't get done. So I was just wondering, and that's some of the stuff, it's like networking our devices, dropping some hard lines, and then coming up with a management plan. And I was wondering if management plan could fall under the funds. Once everything's kind of installed, can we work with Patrick or someone to kind of put together some things? Because nonprofits don't always have an IT person, so having an internal document about how to manage it after the installation for our community to help would be really helpful.
So I think on that one, Brianna, please, again, put the requests in and we'll do what we can to follow up. Part of what I'm doing on the back end is coordinating with various installation providers that ultimately, the case that you just articulated, we would, as part of the grant process, seek to have it bundled, right? It would be essentially a solidified estimate that this provider would say, yes, this is what we'll do it for. The process would be that the check would come from Community Foundation to your organization to then essentially pass straight on to the provider for the installation and configuration at the rate that has been agreed. So, that's part of the larger context. As part of that, being able to, speak with you and your team to understand where you're at and potentially either assist with that final bit of configuration is something we can talk about. So let's get help me get a better sense for where that is, and let's see what we can do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Patrick, if a municipality is looking to bring public Wi-Fi to multiple locations, do we want to see an application for each location? Or do you want to see one application and kind of a detail about the spaces all in the additional comment section?
I think unfortunately, my recommendation would be to do individual applications for each, because this is going to be address specific. The nature of the technical components could vary significantly. So I would ask for discrete applications for each site.
Great. And Nikki, I think that answers your question. Wiley, I see your hand.
Hi, yes, thanks. I think Michael had his before me, but I have a few questions. I'll try to do these one in order. So first of all, are religious organizations eligible?
Yeah, I think as long as they are providing public Wi-Fi, and again, that's defined, not like anybody can walk into our building, but that's that the people that you serve and the community that you serve can come in, but yes.
So, and again, sorry, so if an organization again already offers free Wi-Fi inside its building to its primary users, but they have to ask staff for a password, like how do you see this grant expanding on the service they currently offer? Is it just so the general public could use the system, like in their parking lot or outdoors? Like, I guess that's.
So I think the key piece here is that even my recommendation in most cases would be to still have folks have to register or provide log in using a password. We're not necessarily looking to create connectivity free for everyone. There would still need to, from a security perspective, having a password and being able to limit the number of users would be key. So that doesn't create an environment that is outside the bounds of this program and what we're looking to structure. It is more a matter of, if you have existing Wi-Fi and have insufficient capacity for the population you serve, which is to say things bog down, if you get more than 5 users, then there's an opportunity to potentially augment as part of this. Alternatively, if it's a matter of you have one conference room that is currently wired and able to provide a strong signal, but you have 2 more rooms that if you were able to get a repeater in each of them, you would actually be able to serve another 40 people or something along those lines. So that's more what we're talking about. And it could be just, it could be rooms, it could be floors, whatever your current circumstance is. So it's not just establishment, it can also be expansion.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much.
All right, Junko, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name.
That's all right. It's pronounced Yanko. And I was just wondering, it's for the town of Dalton. So I guess this might have already been answered, but so you guys are looking for really site-specific things. So not, say, the downtown area of Dalton. It's got a small downtown area, but you guys are looking for something that's more concrete and like centered around a single site than say the whole downtown from like, I don't know, the town hall from like we have Daily Ave to say Main Street, for an example, or something like that. Are you guys looking for more site specific because of the technology and the installation that would be required for that? Am I hearing you correctly?
I think that's more accurate. I think really what happens is if you start looking at the larger context of a street, there's a piece to that there's some inherent complexity, both in terms of understanding the population that you're serving, as well as, quite honestly, the scope and scale of the installation. Michael, I don't know if you had something you wanted to add to that.
From Holiday Phone into system.
Yeah, I would just jump in and say, with MBI, the original idea, broadly speaking, was to create public spaces. And I think someone had asked a question about the municipal park. I think that was originally what they were thinking, that kind of public. We expanded the idea to serving the community, through your organization. So if you're inviting the public in for programming, or just not just to have access to your spaces, whatever that might be. I don't think, Yanko, we're thinking about entire downtowns. There will be subsequent money coming through MBI from the feds that could do something sort of like a wide area mesh network or something like that. That's got could actually do a street or do multiple streets. But I would say that that kind of thinking is what we want to do and engage MBI in. So when the next round of funding comes in, it probably is not this grant, but we can sort of raise our collective hands and say, these are the places where we think it would actually be utilized and get ahead of the curve. So a discrete, if you said, well, we got a park and we're going to start there, we can build out. That's sort of the anchoring spot. That's something I think that would make sense. Meredith, while I got the floor, can I just jump in with a couple
Yeah,
of thoughts?
please.
Okay, cool. So for those who don't know me, I'm Michael DeChiara, and I've been working on the Alliance for Digital Equity since the beginning. So, we've sort of been behind this effort, working with Meredith and Emily and Patrick. A few things I just wanted to share. I used to work at the Community Foundation, so I sort of know the funder world, and I've been an applicant enough times. So what I would just suggest is that what we're trying to achieve here, oftentimes when you look for funding is you put your best foot forward and you say, we're great and the work that we're doing is really important. This application is sort of a balance where, of course, you want to invest in a project that's going to have impact. But as Patrick walked through, a lot of this application is just fact finding, of what, so that we can come in more informed and Patrick can have a sense of what's it going to take? How can we have bang for the buck and really understand that? And just to underscore like 14,000 times, we don't expect people to know the answers to all of this stuff. It's just that we can, when Patrick shows up, he has the best understanding that he can. But the idea is from the Alliance for Digital Equity, we are trying to increase internet access, broadly speaking, through a whole bunch of initiatives in all of Western Mass. This is one component part of it. And so that means in this grant initiative, for example, organizations that haven't been able to have internet access and deliver to the people they're serving or the communities they're serving, that's a part of it. And that means organizations who don't have technical experience, who can't usually apply for these kind of grants. So if you don't know the answers, totally fine. Just give it your best guess. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was towards that goal of trying to just lift up the ability of having internet access for people. For the deliverable for the first part of this is, I think of it as an estimate. Patrick will go back and basically work numbers and understand what's it going to take to do what we're trying to achieve on your site. And so even if you end up not being, selected going forward, the anticipation is you'll have something in hand from an IT professional that's been vetted that you can then sort of say, this is how we can go forward. We don't have to hire a consultant to come in and do it because essentially we've just done that work for you. So there's a value add just participating. And the hope is, like you've all experienced in the past, you apply for money and get 50% of what you ask for. The idea here is to try to get a project that can actually get turned on. And you don't have to sort of go looking for other funding to make it happen. That's the intent. So those are my tidbits.
Great. Michael, thank you so much. Patrick, another question for you. Would the grant cover licenses and support for access points or just for the physical devices?
So again, this is where capital and other things come into play. So licenses and support, if you're purchasing a contract, generally you can, at the time of initiation, make that a capitalized expense. So if you were to purchase a support contract for 3 years and the licenses for 3 years, that would certainly fold into the nature of the grant. We would figure that out as part of the funding opportunity, and it would be incorporated into the grant. Extended run rates, operating costs would be part of the discussion that we would have, so that no one's going in with sort of a, hey, this is great, we're all set, and then realizing that there's a 20 or 30% maintenance fee that's going to kick in at some point. So I want to make sure that that everyone has clear and understanding as to what actually is involved with all of this. And unfortunately, technology ages quickly. So it is a matter of trying to design and put something in place that is going to be sustainable. But part of that does need to be recognized, as the grant can cover a portion to get you up and running. The sustainment piece is going to be an obligation or something that would have to be part of the consideration of your organization.
Right. And I think likewise, the second part of that question, the cost of salary for employees to manage the requests, that's something that we're hoping both that the installation is not so onerous that it requires additional staff time. But again, that's something that would not be covered by this grant, but we're going to try to think more broadly about the capitalization, like that investment, and also taking a look at what it's going to take, again, the connectivity budget, if that's a barrier for organizations.
I think I'm going to jump here in Nikki's question. So with respect to the $5,000, to be very clear, that's finger in the wind, $5,000. We expect some will be higher. We expect many will be lower. I can tell you that after conversation, I fully expect that many of these may simply be a matter of the equivalent of a Comcast residential router being established in situ and being able to provide much of the solution that you're looking for. And part of that is I'm going to be very pragmatic in my recommendations, which is to say that even though you might say that you want to, and Yanko, I'm not picking on you, but to have big ideas like wiring and providing free Wi-Fi across an entire 3 or 4 block downtown region is absolutely fantastic. The requirements to keep that up running and effective and to manage it are going to be high. And so it's a bit of a brass ring reach, if you will. So where possible, what I will seek to steer each of you towards will be the most practical solution for your organization, the capabilities that you have, and the population that you're serving. So I'm not seeking to pour water on anything. It's just going to be one of those things where I will be as direct and honest and transparent as possible in terms of what I think is the right solution for you. And quite honestly, part of this is just getting things in place, right? I would much rather get things out there and have you come back and say, we need more capacity because we're actually seeing a much higher use rate than we expected, right? And those are the types of things that we can return to. We can return to MBI with data, which is going to be a key piece to this, to say, look what happened when we did this. And we need to be able to reformat, expand, or change and iterate with time. So I'm very keen I don't want anyone thinking that it's a no-go from the start. To Michael's point, at a minimum, the commitment is you will get an assessment and a piece of work that you will be able to use and leverage for future discussions, whether it's seeking funding in another direction or using it as a basis for a potential planning, future planning or whatever it might be.
Great. And to that point, Patrick, Wiley asked that if organizations aren't funded, could they better understand the budgets of what it would be if they wanted to move forward? That's exactly the case. And as part of this process, we'll also be identifying vendors, especially if you don't have one, to be able to do the installation. And so it is possible that if there are organizations who aren't eligible, that we both will be preparing you a plan, and we have vendors that we will be speaking to who might be able to provide that work outside of the scope of this. One question that hasn't come up that I just want to address is reporting. And we are in a conversation with MBI to try to figure out what the reporting looks like. They're trying to figure out, how many more people are using internet as a result of this, but we are not going to ask you to say, okay, now you weren't in a position to be able to expand and now try to figure out how many people are using that network. Good luck. That's also going to be a part of a conversation with Patrick, with us, to figure out. We'll support you in that process. So if you haven't heard anything about it, it's because we will be working collaboratively with you. There will not be a request that you have to do on your own about reporting. And I think as one more thing I'll say, as Patrick and Michael have alluded to, there is additional money in the Massachusetts Broadband Innovation Fund that has not been granted out. And so while we cannot say there's going to be a subsequent round of this or what that looks like, we anticipate that just the ongoing work on digital equity will be continuing. There has been additional funding allocated to it. So again, if there are projects that are too big for this, as Patrick has talked about, or if other organizations, or if you say this was great, we did it, and actually we now have other locations, our goal is to be able to basically share what that need is with the statewide agency and be able to make that case, particularly on behalf of Western Massachusetts. For those of you that don't know, Western Massachusetts has the most expensive residential internet across the state. And so not only is that something that this program, the Alliance, is working on, but that means that the reliance on public internet is really important for a lot of people as well.
If I could, I do want to just quickly return to Nikki, your question again on the sort of multiple small sites. Given that you're talking about essentially a collected solution, if you will, multiple sites, same core premise, just give me an indicator if you can on the application to simply say site 1, site 2, so that I know to roll them up into, to effectively treat them as a bundle. It would still require individual identification of each site, but in terms of the overall granting process, it may be a matter of being able to just bundle them all together.
Great. So it is 10:50. It looks like the questions have slowed down. Again, if you have any questions at all, please email us at grants@communityfoundation.org. If it's something that needs to be handled more in a conversation rather than an email, we will set that up. Please pay attention to the deadlines. Again, it's your best effort. So if you find that like we can't submit it, we have one question we can't figure out, the answer of I don't know is much better than missing the deadline for this grant. And we, Emily, Patrick, Michael, and myself will hang here for the 10 minutes if folks have questions that might be better asked individually. But otherwise, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing on behalf of the populations that you serve. We know that it's a busy time of year, both organizationally and helping folks. And we're excited about this opportunity and what will come from it. So again, thank you so much and have a great morning.